question is, how long have you been doing this campaign to clean up Salford Quays?
So we started towards the end of last summer. Yeah, we just started around then, really. It's something that I started a new job in Salford, and I saw very quickly that this area was feeling a bit unloved and a bit tired, and it needed a good clean up. And there was just like a swan eating a piece of polystyrene where I usually have my lunch, where I look out on the back of Clippers Quay. There's like a little mud flat with some concrete pontoons from the old docklands, and there was just loads of. It was like a really good area for nature because there was herons, there was moorhens, there was coots, there was seabirds, and they were feeding naturally. Like they weren't eating people's chips out of bins and stuff. They were running their beaks along the mud, like looking for insects and things like that. But then there was a swan eating a piece of polystyrene. It was like pecking at it, and I just thought this area could be so much better. There's so much potential for this bit. And Salford, I've said this to other people before, but Salford's a city in its own right, and there's no reason for it to be, the growth on the side of Manchester. Manchester gets a lot of press and a lot of support, and kind of that gets the limelight, really. But Salford's just as beautiful and has just as much potential, but it is tired and unloved. And I don't think the council and local government and their MPs are doing as much as they could for the area and the government.
So, as well as Salford Quays, have you considered to tidy up the streets of Salford as well and the woodlands in as well?
It's a wider campaign now. So where I'm doing it in Salford at the moment, so Liberal Democrats might be no surprise to you, but we don't have as much money as the Labour Party does, and as much as and the Conservatives as well. Labour completely run this council. I don't have enough because I'm paying for this campaign out of my own pocket, basically using my savings to pay for this, to try and win an election, to try and create these nature reserves, to try and get late night trams, to try and support residents to end the cladding scandal, get the MPs behind them. I'm using my own money, and I can't afford to run a campaign across the whole of the city of Salford, unfortunately. But the wider message that we're saying here is, right, we've got an election here. We can win 3 seats in the all-out election in one ward in Salford Quays. It's a new ward. And one of the things that we want to do is send a message to the local council, say, look, like we want to clean up Salford. If you won't, we will. So if we win this May, that's a strong message to the administration. Hopefully they will do some more. And that's why opposition's powerful. So I'd like to do more across the streets of Salford. In Salford Quays, it's not a small area. It stretches all the way from Regent's Road all the way to Media City, along I nearly said the coast then, along the shore of the river, the canal. There are streets and roads there that need cleaning up, and the Clean Up the Quays message is not just about litter. It's about creating the nature reserves. It's about nurturing the nature that we have. But also, like, if you walk around some of this area, so I live in Exchange Quay, in a building with flammable cladding in, unfortunately. If you walk, so it's Trafford Road is a really busy road. If you want to get across that road, and if you're in a wheelchair, you have to go over the crossings. There's not even a crossing with a button at some places. The curbs aren't lowered. There's no ridged pavement for blind people, and the underpasses where you can get from one side of the offices at Exchange Quay to the Co-op at Clippers Quay. I don't know if you know the area very well, but there's no disabled ramps. So if you want to cross the road safely, you have to go around for quite a way to get to a crossing that's safe enough. But even that crossing doesn't have the right kind of facilities for disabled people. There's not a lot of thought put into how this area can be improved. And this is quite a newly built area as well. This is the last 40, 30 years, sometimes even 10 years. It's been a place of growth and expansion for a while. Like I came here when I'm rambling now, but I came here when I was very young. I'm 29 now, and I've been here since the age of 5, coming to Old Trafford for United games. I don't know if you like football, but I support United. Been indoctrinated by... Oh, dear. All right. Yeah, Dad wouldn't be a fan of you. No. It's all just in it. I mean, so I've been around here for a long time, and I've seen it change. Yeah. One thing that I will say is that it was a lot cleaner when I was a kid. And then when all these tower blocks went up, when they were doing all this building, they've not put in disabled ramps and they've not put in nature reserves, and the green space has been reduced. So what I would like to do is basically just change the theme of local government, remind people that local government is extremely important. It can have power. Communities are powerful. And I'm basically putting the value in community. And that's what Liberal Democrats do, I think. That's what I believe in. That's why I do what I do.
How much does it cost to clean up, to tidy up the Salford Quays? How much does it regularly cost?
So, well, it costs thousands of pounds, is the bottom line. And there are, so the city council employs teams of people to come and clean up the waterways, but they come sporadically. So I know I had got an email from the city council after a storm. I haven't been through all their accounts to tot up the exact total cost. But one thing I'm basically saying to people is it'll be more regular if I'm elected. We'll put in nature reserves. We'll have better barriers to protect against rubbish after storms and things like that. We'll have one of the things that we've been saying in our leaflets and literature is we want more community policing, less litter. There's a lot of zones that are basically used by people. I mean, you know, I'm not anti-drugs, and I'm not, I think there's a wider conversation to be had about that. But I just find like bags of NOS canisters on the industrial estates, like between where I live in Media City, like that area could be massively improved. So
how can it be improved then, this Media City?
Well, so Media City is, I would say, it's pretty good at the moment, but there are spots around here that's endemic throughout Salford where you've just got like big patches of unused land that people drive up at night and they either let off fireworks, they're the takeaways, and they just have laughing gas and they just chuck all the crap out of the car on the side. There's no care, and also there's like dead spots where it's quite dark at night, so it's quite unsafe for women. And I don't mean to be sexist when I say that, but like I think that there is an admission, and there's something that everyone has to admit, that night is different for women than it is for men, or old people and younger people, whether you're a kid as well. I was going to, at the moment, I've been doing a lot of nighttime walks, because just to break it up a bit. And I was like, oh, I'll walk to Media City, and I was like, oh, I won't walk through the quays because it's quite dark. Like there's no lighting in some of these bits, and I was like, even I, a 29-year-old bloke, don't want to walk through the quays. So I was like, right, I'll follow Trafford Road going up round Media City. I started walking along this dual carriageway, and completely took me out of the way of Media City. I was like, where's this taking me? And it just took me all the way through Salford. There's no safe walkways at night. So, and I've already reported several street lamps that are out. Up at the top of the ward, up at Regent's Road End, where you've got some of those new flats, and they've not been fixed yet. The council's not got back to me to say it's been fixed. It's just, I'm not sure I've answered your question, but there's an attitude here that stinks, and it does start in local government. Like things need to change. They're not as on it as they should be, and I know councils have had cuts and there's problems with money, but one of the things that need to change, just a little bit more love, a little bit more TLC towards little aspects of the community. I'd like to change that, really.
Why do you think also like you don't get Liberal Democrats who don't get the recognition they deserve, and it's always this battle between Conservatives and Labour? Why do you think many people do not want to vote for Liberal Democrats?
Well, there's loads of reasons. So, God, you have to like talk about what human beings are like in that sense. Human beings like to win, and they like to be part of something that will win. The amount of people I've spoke to said I would vote Liberal Democrat, but they never win. If I added up all those people, there'd be over 1,000 people, and I think I've spoke to like 30,000 people in my time, maybe on the doors on my stats on our little app that we use when we knock on doors. I mean, that's over 6 years, but there's a lot of people who would vote Liberal Democrat, but there is a mindset in this country that puts people at diametric opposites. There's left and right, and it's very polarized. Our voting system is non-representative. Sorry, you got me ranting now. Our voting system needs serious change. If you vote say if we're in Salford, good example, say if you wanted to vote Conservative, let's just say, even me and you, if we wanted to vote Conservative, or Liberal Democrat, they wouldn't win because the popular vote of Labour here is so extreme, so high, that they win this seat year on year. And then there comes to be a thing called safe seats. Well, what's the point of having a democracy if you've got safe seats? Why is that a phrase? Why is safe seats a phrase in our democracy? I think that's wrong. Every vote cast by every citizen of this country should attribute to the seats in the parliament. Getting political now about what I believe in. So I'm a unionist. I believe in the UK staying together. I like the idea that England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland are united and they share wealth and regional status, and the government is expanded and quite powerful. The UK has political weight in the world, has some standing, and that gives people in those, funnily enough, in some way, it gives people on those council estates, wherever they are in the UK, that kind of status and power, that kind of, the state apparatus to help those people in public services with benefits. I think it's really important. And the protection that is given in a country like this, as much as people do it down, it's a fantastic country. The SNP have upwards of 50 MPs and they get just over 1 million votes, right? Liberal Democrats get nearly 4 million votes. We've got 10 MPs. Now, people think that no one votes for Liberal Democrats. Well, actually, Labour got 11 million votes the last general election, and Liberal Democrats got nearly 4 million. Now, 4 million is quite a chunk of 11 million. And when you think about the Labour Party and how big that is, the only vote share that went up at the last general election was Liberal Democrats. If we got seats representative of our votes that we got, we'd have, well, in past elections, we'd have 100 of MPs. We'd probably have like 60 MPs now. So it's a huge issue about reform, and the people who don't want to change that are the Labour Party and the Conservatives. And it's just a fact of life. They're in charge. They don't want to change it. And because they're also frenemies in that sense, when one of them gets in, they're not going to change it because the other one will not. It's almost like they have a deal because they run the roost. And it won't change until you get rid of that power system. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a Liberal Democrat. And it's why change is necessary, because I think that people get frustrated in a lack of change as well. And I think that with Brexit vote, you got so many people voting for something that was different because they thought they want a bit of change. Like, let's get rid of the EU. My life's not working for me. Let's just vote it. Let's get rid of it. It doesn't represent me. It's a good example of people wanting change. But I think the change needs to shift the other way now. But that's just my opinion because I'm a Liberal Democrat. But yeah,
moving away from politics, there's this organisation called Keep Britain Tidy. I'm not sure if you heard of it.
Yeah.
According to them, young people are the key to eliminate litter and ending waste for now and future generations. Do you agree with that statement?
I do, because at some point, the older generation will die off or end up in care. And it's always the duty of the younger generation to take on the mantle of the older. It's, no older generation should bind their youth to something, but that's happening, isn't it? I think, I completely agree with that statement.
Have you tried to work with young people then to try and get them involved in saving the environment in your campaign as well?
It's incredibly hard, not only in politics. So I've been trying to get new people to stand for election. I've also been trying to get new people to come out, help lift a pick with me, and not just young people. So I have a very egalitarian approach to politics. So it's not just young people, it's everybody. I've seen some of the most committed campaigners, a team of old ladies in their 80s, stuffing envelopes or knocking on doors and delivering leaflets. Like, one of the best campaigners that I've seen in my time in politics have been women over the age of 70, like these strong individuals who will just, they are just so passionate about their community, will do anything. They're the kind of people who anyone can go to on their street. But young people have that same vein. Like, if you want old women over the age of 70 who are great community campaigners and look after their environment. Oh, sorry, I can hear myself on your screen. Could you mute? Sorry. I'm very distracting to myself. There we go. Yeah, so, but young people will become those older people. It's about establishing the best setup for the next generation. Round here, there's no schools that people have to, there's lots of families around here. There's loads of people walking their dogs, their kids. There's lots of young people. Now, say if, in my place, say there's a family living in here, in this tiny flat, and they had a kid, well, that kid's going to grow up. But what if they like it around here? Well, they're going to have to move if they want to be near a school. There's nothing like that. And with all the construction that's gone on around here, it's just been box people in, box people in, box people in. Let's use this land for flats. Flats, 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 flats. I'm not sure if you've seen Manktopia, that series, but that's well worth a watch on the BBC. The way that they try and cram people in, when they make a development, they just think about building up. They don't think about putting in trees and parks or putting in business space below. They don't think about creating community, a health clinic, an STI clinic, or a school, a dentist, a library. None of that is taken into account. None of that's been built. The fact of the matter is, people at the moment just care about money. And the fact of the moment is, people. I'm sorry to be casting a downer on it. I sound like I'm ranting, but people just don't care. They don't think like they used to. There's a huge attitude problem in this country, and mine and your generation. People who design these buildings, younger people who design these buildings, they're not building them for communities. They're building them for money and wealth.
As well as young people, do you feel like we need to educate pet owners as well? Because there's 8 million dogs in the UK. They produce 1,000 tons of mess. Half of pet owners, they do clean up after their own dogs, but the other half they don't. So how do you think we could change that, and how do you think we can educate more pet owners then?
Oh, that's a really good question. Sorry, could you mute yourself again? Sorry, I can hear myself, can't I? My voice got a very annoying voice. So I have done some work before looking into dog ownership. I've been attacked by a dog actually when I've been campaigning before, and it was like a pit bull cross with a demon, I think, and it just grabbed my arm, and I had to like fight this dog basically on this woman's garden while she was screaming, and she didn't know how to stop it. And I was like, I had to literally tell her mid-fight, "Can you put yourself between me and the dog? Because otherwise, it's gonna have me." There's no education around owning dogs, and I think that is, unfortunately, it's a class thing. The dangerous dogs, when I'm out community campaigning, the dangerous dogs are usually either out on farms in rural areas where the dogs never see people, the big farm dogs, or the big dogs that people own in tiny terraces in cities. You don't get big horrible dogs. You do sometimes, but generally in like kind of more middle class areas, you don't. And I think there's a huge thing about like there's just there needs to be more education about dog ownership. I think that's a really hard one though, isn't it? Because if you look at other countries around the world, like there's stray dogs on the streets and there's no dog charities. And the dogs, people don't even have leads with the dogs there. Whereas at least here, people keep the dogs inside. But there are people die numerous dog attacks every week in this country. When I worked at Oldham for the borough council there was, I think, like once a month you'd hear about someone being attacked by a dog, sometimes being killed by a dog. In Preston last year, there was a woman killed by a dog. Just went over and grabbed her by the back of the neck. She actually died 3 days later. She didn't go to hospital when she had been bitten by the dog. She died of sepsis. That was what killed her. But that was back in 2019. That, but still, like seriously, serious education is necessary. Who's to give that education? Well, not me. But it's such a big problem. It's a really, really good question. It's something that I care about quite strongly. I've heard people say people have a license for their pets. Now that's dangerous territory because that's like, I know this country likes the licenses and there's a bit of a joke on the internet about Britain and the licenses, but I guess in that way you would make headway to protect people. You'd have to not pass a test to get a dog, but then that's serious infringement on liberty, isn't it? It's the state saying that you can't own a dog because you've not passed this test. It's an argument that not other people will have to figure out, but I'm certainly not an expert authority on it. I've just got an opinion on what needs to change, and I just care about that. It's a very good question. Sorry, it was about mess, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's like, because many people think, I've been doing a survey and many people thought like go to dog groomers, get like posters, like when people are walking the dog, there's just need more bins as well. I also spoken to a lady who does something in Bury, and she says we need to do something with bags. So when you clean it up, and then you just can't just chuck it out and then get someone else to clean it up. So do you feel like, as well as uh, like education, do you feel like you, people who are buying the dogs from, they need to have some sort of awareness of what they're getting into?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things as well is, on the waste subject, there's not enough bins around. So like I've been walking by the canals, I've been walking through Salford. Everyone's doing a lot more walking at the moment, and sometimes I'm carrying a coffee cup for maybe a mile, 2 miles, because there's no bins. The problem is, again, it's an issue about council funding. They've not put in the bins. There's not enough bins. There just needs to be more bins. I think that's a big thing as well. And maybe like having, like how you have a grit bin and you've got that's a thing that they're put in so that people can use them, so that the roads are ice free. Well, why don't we put there's little disposable bags that they give you, the compostable bags that they give you when you get your bins. There's little green rolls, and it's like very thin, weird material for the bag. There could be a roll of those under, so you could have a red dog bin, and then you could have a little plastic cap that lifts up, and there's like a roll, and then you could pull if you needed a bag. You'd be like, oh, I've not got my bag today. I've left it. Like, whenever I've walked a dog, the amount of times I've forgotten my poo bags, it's like, right, okay, well, I need to go back. And then sometimes it's like I've lived in the country before. I've done it. Me and my dad did this thing called a stick and flick, where we just get a stick and flick it into the hedge, because it's like we lived in the countryside. There was like no one around. But that's bad, isn't it? Like you shouldn't do that. I think it's more acceptable in a really, really rural area, but obviously when there's lots of people around, that dog poo's like really, really, really horrible for the environment, and it's dangerous for kids as well. It can make children go blind, can't it? I think education's important, but I think there needs to be apparatus and services there to meet that need. So yeah, put in those poo bags, put the bins out. People can then use those. There'll always be people who won't. Attitude problem again, but then human beings have always had an attitude problem. So human nature.
How do you change the attitude to a positive attitude towards the environment then?
Oh, sorry. Could you mute again? Sorry. I've got such a loud, horrible, grating voice. It's because of the delay. It's easy, I think. It's really easy. So, I don't know, like, I think for me, it's obvious. And it's about doing what you can, and it's about education, but not education as like, oh, just the schools do it, but like, having that repeated message thrown at you as you're growing up. So I've always been told, as I think it's a bit of an English thing, but like, to be polite, like watch your manners. Like that's something that is people always say, mind your P's and Q's, be polite to people. English people are incredibly polite. I mean, there's a lot of rude people out there, but generally, like, we're very good with our manners. And I think you could do the same with the environment. So like, I want to put in a nature reserve where there isn't one currently, because there's loads of animals there that need that. If people start creating these nature reserves and families maintain that importance, and as a visible, like if you live in an environment that's good for nature and that message is hammered around to you all the time, and that's the theme of where you live, you're going to grow up thinking that way, because that's what you've known. And people inhibit and project what's been projected onto them, because we are but a canvas, really. We project what's given to us. It's a reason why people who have been abused sometimes end up being abusers. It's a sad fact. It's like we project what's given to us, and I think that what we're doing right now is abusing the planet. It's not just the fault of the people who've come before us, but there's a messaging problem. We've not been this waste conscious ever in humanity's history, and we're at a really key moment right now. And I think that change the theme where you can. I'm only one person. My team's small. We don't have lots of money, but I can, if I get elected, I can put in nature reserves here, no problem, and I will do, because I care about it, and I want others to care about it. But the community has to do that too. So it's about groups of people. It's not just about I will do all this on my own. It's about, right, well, this is what I want to do. Will you help me do it? Let's all do it as a community.
Do you feel like with the UK hosting COP26 this year, do you feel like the government has taken interest and taken notice of how the environment is, like how bad it is?
Well, they've just put ahead a new coal mine up in Cumbria. So, no, I don't think so. It's nice that we're hosting the country. It's nice that we're hosting COP, but I mean, at the moment, the government message is about business support. It's about COVID. It's about Brexit. Environmental focus isn't something that the government's talking about, or that I am not seeing any communication from government or any news stories that mention that. Let's have a little look. If I go on BBC News now, will there be any communications from government, any press releases about the environment? Let's have a look. Yeah, there's a review coming through, but that's a lot of this stuff's generated by so a lot of this stuff's generated by opposition parties in this country. Here again, like, you know, I think the attitude of this government's problematic. Like, they've just abstained on a key vote on the cladding scandal, like a solution to the cladding problem that's going on here. All the Conservative MPs have abstained on it. But if you look at this article here, so that's that Cumbrian coal mine. So, like, a minister's just like let that through. Do you think this country care? I mean, with the problem with fossil fuels and renewability, allowing a new coal mine to go ahead, I'm not hung up on that one coal mine, but it's part of that, isn't it? You know, you're hosting a climate, you've got a serious climate issue, and someone asks if you care, and then you're doing something that kind of rolls that backwards a bit. It's, you know, if I could say the government cared about it, I'm sure there are individuals that do, and I'm sure there are civil servants that do. But as a general theme of this government is a Brexit government. It's a pandemic government. It's a coronavirus government. And it's not done very well on any of those things. And environment, if anyone said, oh, is this an environmental government? I'd probably laugh in the face. It's not. I've not seen anything from them that's made me think that this government cares about the environment seriously. The way I look at it is, if you wouldn't, I'm trying to put an analogy that doesn't sound too weird, but like, you wouldn't build a log fire. You were camping over the weekend. You wouldn't burn all your wood in one night. And that's exactly what this government's doing. That's exactly what the world's doing. People shouldn't be using the fossil fuels. They should be. We're at a stage where we can change to renewable energy completely. Like, we could do that with tidal, wind, and solar. And there's loads of interesting things that you can do in hydro as well. They're just not doing that. I've not seen any evidence of it.
On the other hand, the government has put in £56 billion to do this HS2 project, which is not going to be used in like 2035. So would you think it does create jobs, which is what they want, but do you think this train is environmental friendly?
It depends what you mean by it. If it depends if the output, if the machine itself is environmentally friendly, as in, does it create a negative carbon footprint?
Well, it's going through like the countryside and damaging the countryside. So do you feel like it's got like nice views, but do you feel like it's damaging the environment as well?
Yeah, if you demolish a forest and you cut through a series of hills and nature, and then yeah, of course it damages the environment. I mean,
do you think like the government, because it's not being used till like 2035, 2041, do you feel like it's a waste of money in that sense, that when that money can go to building the NHS, building something that is beneficial now?
I'm a firm believer in long-term infrastructure projects. So if they were like, if a government came along and said, right, it takes forever to get to Newcastle from Manchester, it takes forever to get to Manchester from Leeds, why does it take so long on the train? Why does it take an hour it takes so short. It's quite so quick from going London to Manchester, but if you want to go to Leeds, it's circuitous and like takes forever, especially in the car. I think infrastructure is really important. Like if you've been to Wales, the infrastructure there is terrible. Like there needs to be more roads there. But then you make a sacrifice of, do you want to build a road over where a hill and a field once was, or a patch of land where animals lived? It's a really difficult argument because you can also say, well, the same, when building on greenbelt for people's houses, people need homes. I think there's plenty of brownfield site that could be used. I'm pro infrastructure and I like infrastructure projects. I think they're good and useful, and it's not just about. So I think also life isn't, and government isn't just about doing stuff for the next 5 years. It's about a long-term plan. So in some ways, it's good, but like you say, the impacts on nature will be negative because it cuts through so much. I've seen a lot of people campaigning against HS2 for that reason. It's not the hill that I'm going to die on. It's not my fight. That I'm not going to fight against HS2. There's not much I can do in that regard, I don't think, from my position. What I can do is try and get this community where I live right now caring about nature here and make a positive impact here. And hopefully that will spread as a wider message to the city of Salford and Greater Manchester. And I hope that other councils take up on the work that I will do in the next 5 to 10 years here.
You also volunteer at the End Our Cladding Scandal. Cost to remove this unsafe cladding then?
Well, so it could be £10,000 per flat. The costs are dizzying. I've got a really handy little sheet that has a little crib sheet with how much it costs for where I am. But basically, where I live right now, all the leaseholders got sold. Well, you might have to pay X to get all this cladding shifted on the side of your building, and it was like 10 grand a property, that's been landed on the people who are not just landlords, but also the people who are renting as well, because landlords think, I've got to pay 10 grand, I have to put my rent up. It's like, and this is a mistake of a government in the past, and it's a mistake of a developer in the past, and the people who pay for it now are the people who've been conned. So it's like a double con. Not only is it unsafe and they've fallen foul of that, but it's a historic mistake that they're having to pay money for. My line's simple on this. We borrow enough as it is as a government. We're furloughing everyone. We've paid for so much out of prudential borrowing. I say take a huge loan from the United States or wherever, or China, whoever, and then pay for it all this cladding, get it all sorted and done so we don't have another Grenfell. And then we work out what happens later with people paying for it, because it should just get sorted. There's a risk, there's a serious health and safety risk if we don't want another Grenfell, and we will if we're not careful, because there's not enough action being taken on it. The writing's on the wall, and unfortunately the wall's made of flammable cladding, so that needs changing pronto. And I think that the money is a secondary factor in all that, and it can be sorted by prudential borrowing. It can be sorted by borrowing from the government.
How many flats in Salford are there still with cladding, and is there any other alternative material that we can use to make the buildings look pretty, because that's what the purpose is, really?
Yeah, so I think a good one that they're using at the moment, so they're building some ones over in Trafford. They're using an insulation, and then they have like a brick cladding that is kind of slid down as like a sheet on the outside. I think they actually build the bricks around the cladding or the insulation. I've seen how they've been building some of these buildings. How many flats are there with flammable cladding in Salford Quays? As much as I know, there's about 8 blocks around here. And as many, the flats can number between, well, in terms of residences, when we think about doors. Oh, sorry, you're quizzing me now. So where I live now, there's 280 residents here, and I think that there's about 700 residents. There's about 280 flats, I think, here. So residences. So that's, just think about that times maybe 10, just under 10. Like times by 8, so that's a hell of an amount of people. I don't have the exact figure, sorry. I don't want to lie.
So once you remove this cladding, where are you going to put it? Because you got like the foam, you got the insulation, then you got the tiling. So how can you recycle this cladding that is going to be beneficial for the environment?
Well, it requires some inventive thought, doesn't it? It's not something that I'm going to be doing. It's a really, really good question. Again, that's a very good question. I think it's something that a council should have a hand in, and a waste disposal committee for Greater Manchester Authority, all the money that they get, and Mr. Burnham, who's paid so much a year to manage such things. I'm sure the powers that be at the Greater Manchester Waste Disposal Committee. I mean, they have huge contracts with Biffa. And other waste people, but there are reclamation firms and recycling firms that might be able to do something with that waste. I think that is it's a really good question, and I think that comes hand in hand, doesn't it, with what happens after the cladding scandal? It's like a very but the plan for that needs to be enacted before they start removing the cladding. But some of these flats have already started removing the cladding because they've just sorted it out for their tenants. Like some of the Peel buildings have been there's some happening over at the is it the Hart building at Media City? They're having theirs replaced. There's a building here on Elmira Way, just off Trafford Road, that's having theirs replaced. I'm not sure if residents have paid for that. I think that the company has just got it sorted because it's their building. That's not happened here because there's lots of private owners that own the flats within the overall building, the leaseholders. So it's that those waste materials could be used to create dare I say it, like nature reserves. Thinking about plastic seepage, it depends because I think there's different materials that have been used in the cladding process. Like some are woods, some are carbon fibers, and some are polymers with plastic. So plastic seepage is a problem for the environment. So you need to think very carefully about how you use that.
That is it. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're all right.